My wife and I both grew up on a family farm. We weren't able to stay on our family farm because they're no longer in the family. But my wife and I bought a farm in 2007. And so she's the full-time farmer of the family, and I'm the spouse with a job in town so we can have insurance. And so we have about 300 head of sheep and goats. We have about 31 mama cows. We have a small hatchery, raise a lot of heritage breeds, fancy birds for show people. So anyway, that's kind of my background. But I love talking about soil health. And today on the program, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the programs we're doing in Arkansas, working with producers, and kind of along the same line of the soil health partner talk earlier today. But to go into this, to start, I don't think a lot of our work would be possible without this group of farmers. This is a group of farmers that formed the Arkansas Soil Health Alliance. Cover crops came to me, my eyes were open to cover crops dealing on our farm, on our pastures, in what they did to improve soil health, because when we first moved our farm, a cow patty would sit out there for months and months and just not change. Now that we've improved soil health, everything, a cow patty disappears in no time. And so I got to looking at that. I was working with the National Cotton Council. I said, if this works this good in pastures, it's got to work good in row crops. So then I started looking around, and my eyes were finally open to this. I saw a lot of producers that were already doing this. And a lot of them are part of this alliance. So working with those group of people are really beneficial. So we have, a lot of the cover crop initiatives are farmer-led. And here's just some examples of some of those. We got the Soil Health Alliance there. But one I really like is cover crops doing what can't be done again. Because, when you visit with people, say, oh, I can't do cover crops here. But, if you want your soil to be healthy, you shouldn't see it very often. But a lot of those things are producer-led. Now then, in Arkansas, we have multi-county project that we're working on cover crops. Because, when we look at producers are very visual people. In fact, I was at a meeting one time, and I think it was Bill Buckner with the Noble Foundation said, regardless of the level of the education of a producer, nearly every one of them have a PhD in observation. They pick up on things. They know it works. That's what they do. They may not know why it works, but that's what they do. And so to have a group like that to be helping to drive your programs is very beneficial. So in Arkansas Soil Health Partners, we got people with the University of Arkansas system. We have people with Arkansas State University. We have USDA-ARS. The Arkansas Soil Health Alliance is kind of our kind of help direct and give us advice on what things they feel like we need to do research on, and they're very good research partners. Because as an extension specialist, I don't do any research on a small plot farm or on an experiment station. Everything I do is in a farmer field. So most of our cotton harvesters are 6 rows wide, so my plots are 6 rows wide, and most of my plots run the length of the field. And so I work on a producer level. But we have the Conservation District, we have NRCS, so we have a lot of partners involved with this. We're doing different things. We're looking at use of cover crops, developing soil indicators. One of the big things is, and I talked about producers being very visual. I think also most producers are from Missouri because you got to show me. And that goes a long ways. A lot of our speakers before have talked about going in and working with farmers, doing demos. We get a lot of traction out of splitting fields in half. We work with a farmer, say, you do what you do on your side with your tillage. Most of them don't use a cover crop. Then we'll make minor adjustments to your program so we can do a cover crop. Most of the time, the newbies, I start with cereal rye. Because, most people agree that cereal rye is the cover crop with training wheels. And so we start with that and evolve into multi-species to fit their operation. But we have those two comparisons, and there are a lot of educational moments through the field or through the year. We have a lot of hurdles. A lot of us today have heard people talk about the benefits of doing cover crops, but to get a farmer to do it in our economic environment right now, if a farmer's not making record yields, or at least in Arkansas and the Mid-South, if they're not making record yields, they're not really getting ahead. Our state average yield last year was 1,150 pounds. If you only made 1,150 pounds, you just barely paid your out-of-pocket expenses. So you're not bettering yourself. So when we look at perception, peer pressure, human nature, a lot of those social type things come into play. And the speaker before talked like the landlords were more into this than kind of what I see. Because when I look at, I show these two pictures right here on the day of planting to a lot of landlords. I say, who is the best producer? Because these are two fields this year on the day of planting. And most of them will say, I want a good farmer, one with clean fields and straight rows. But, David, we're going to have a field day on this one on this other side, and just to kind of follow through, in the top left is an image of that cover crop. There's, about 20 pounds of cereal rye, 20 pounds of black oats, and about 1.5 pounds of vetch in that cover crop mix. So we went in, the farmer run a rolling basket. I had a loan of a roller crimper. We did strips of those. They both worked pretty good. There was just enough hairy vetch in there when we rolled the cereal rye and the black oats down that it held it down. So that rolling basket worked really good. And there's not the latest picture, but there's a stand. He got a very good stand. And so it works good. So we're going to have a field day next Thursday there, and hopefully we get a lot of people there to look at it. Another hurdle is, we don't have time. I know I get involved in this, and sometimes I'm kind of like these cavemen. I get so dang busy doing what I'm doing, I don't have time to talk to that feller that's got a round wheel. I'm going to keep using what I'm using because that's what I'm used to. I hope y'all are a little different than that. But another hurdle is, there's just more research that's needed. If you look in Arkansas, and I got a picture, this is Steve Stevens, and I know Steve Stevens is mentioned in the brochure that was handed out today. When my entomologist counterparts at the University of Arkansas see this, we got a planter and a sprayer in the field the day of planting. Actually, we're terminating behind the planter. Their heads blow up because of the Green Bridge thing. They want us to terminate 4 weeks in front of the planter. I talked to our weed guys. Our weed guys say, Bill, 10 days to 14 days in front of the planter. The farmers that are doing it for a living are terminated either right in front of the planter or behind the planter. But there's some different things going on. The bug guys go out, they get called on situations, say we have Austrian winter peas and we're planting soybeans. We got 2 legumes, 2 broadleaves. And so it's just like a super monoculture. So they're already raising the pest that's going to jump on the crop. So I like to stay with mostly a grass mix on cotton. But the big thing is to evaluate what you have. There's a lot of cases where our beneficial insects far outnumber all the pests. And having the diversity in the cover crop blend will help lend to that diversity of your beneficials. It goes a long ways. But the Green Bridge is an issue. It scares me. But most producers I've worked with, we have not seen that. I'm really fortunate. I was with Extension and came back after a stint at National Cotton Council, but to work with Mike Daniels and others in the Discovery Farm, it was really a good situation for this. But, I talked about most producers being risk takers and very observational and being from Missouri. So let's just jump on. I've got some images that provide those educational opportunities I talked about. The farmers, Steve Stevens' daughter, she farms some of the ground and he farms some of the ground, but she was riding her horse across the end of the field and she saw this difference and she posted it on Facebook. So this is a copy of her Facebook post showing how much green, how much greener, how much more healthy the cover crop side looked to the no cover crop. And the big driver on this was increased water infiltration and the moisture status available to the plants. Because every field I've gone into this year where we split a field in half, the zone where the effective roots are about twice as deep on the cover crop side as they are on the on the till side with no cover crop. And there's a lot of those fields you can walk across and you can feel the difference. When you're in the cover crop side, it's kind of soft. It kind of feels a little bit like you're walking on carpet. You get to the other side, you're walking on pavement. And so there's a lot of different things you can see. And so I grabbed the farmer and say, Steve, come on out to the field, or Joe or David or whoever's field I'm at, come out to the field and let's look at this. It goes a long ways. Another thing I do is get them to go out to the field after rain. Because, when we feed the soil microbes, and we do all this thing, and that lends to improving soil structure. When we improve soil structure, we get better water infiltration. I get them to go out to a field after rain. This is after 3.5-inch rain. On the side where we have no-till with a cover crop, it's soaked in like a sponge. You go to the other side, even though we did put a cover crop, he harvested the cotton, he did some tillage, and planted his cover crop, the water ponded, he had runoff. And, when we look at this, most of us are used to seeing the image or the left side of this figure. When we look at healthy soil by volume, about half the volume of a good healthy soil should be room for air and water. We have pore space. When we have compaction, we just squeeze the pore out of it. But anyway, I saw a slide. I saw a slide in Omaha where he talked about 17% of the volume was for water and another 17 for air. But so when we do this and we don't have the pore space, it's no wonder when we get our 2-inch rain or 3-inch rain, we get a little bit of it soaked in, but everything runs off. In some of the fields, Adam Chapel, where we're going to do our field day, we've measured water infiltration. We have 6-8 inches per hour. And so the water soaks in. Increased irrigation efficiency. This is kind of what we see. Where we have the till side, the water don't soak in all the way, or it doesn't soak all the way up to the top of the row. I go out there with a soil probe a lot. And it's not unusual for me to hit dry soil about 6 inches down. On the cover crop side, the water soaks all the way up to the top of the bed. And I can take a soil probe 2 foot down, very good moisture, very good cotton roots all the way down. And we think about the rhizosphere that Shannon talked about yesterday. And look at this, the top bar graph, and I want you to really concentrate just on the blue line because that's the 6-inch sensor. But an irrigation event, rainfall event, really only impacts that 6-inch sensor. And so there's a little bit of a party there in the rhizosphere, but not much. But on the bottom part of that figure, an irrigation event, rainfall event, impacts the 6, the 12, and the 18-inch sensor. Hell, that's Mardi Gras. And so, that runs it. The producer was thinking that, our beds are getting flat. We were going to run out of beds. We come in, Johnny Hunter, a farmer in Missouri, come up with a furrow runner plow. We run that. A lot of times that's when I say almost no till, that's the only tillage we do, but that's what it should look like. We do the field print calculator. Allison Thompson's here. I'm running out of time. But we take pretty much everything we do in the field and put in the field print calculator. The take home on this is that blue shaded area. The blue shaded area is your environmental footprint. This is the same field. We cut the field in half. Look how much difference just changing those practices made on your environmental footprint. And that's exactly what the supply chain wants. Now, when we took some of this data, what the producer wants is profitability. And we see in this slide here with this data, we got about 5 cents a pound cheaper to produce cotton with a no-till with the cover crop. So that's about $60 an acre on this. So that's real money. So in our program, I think it's very important to develop and utilize partnerships. The part on the left is the district conservationists. We had a field day where we had university people there, NRCS people there, conservation district people there, the whole gamut. He said that's one of the most enjoyable times he's had since he started his career with NRCS. So develop those partnerships. Rowan Atwood with Wranglers on one of the slides. It's Adam Chapel. I think I'll end right here. She said stop. But a visual thing, this is a slide that I like to use. You look on the left, they talked about 10,000 pounds of active material in a healthy soil. Something I wonder about, okay, if we have a bare soil with no living roots, instead of being 2 African elephants, is that 2 hungry sheep? But anyway, developing a partnership, taking advantage of the visual opportunities you have in the field will go a long ways toward getting a producer to look at doing these things. And once we get them to start, they don't back out. Thank you.